there's a lot going on.
Oh, for sure. Because when I see the therapist actually reply to the, are you okay? And they're like, they're
I
not
haven't seen
okay.
that thread. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Their therapists are saying they're not okay. They're underpaid. They're burned out.
Hmm.
It's crazy because my husband was telling me about Charlemagne was marketing talk space, and he
Hmm.
was like,
That man be getting on my nerves.
yeah, he was like, won't you look into it? And I looked into it, and I was like, no, like that's one of those companies. I always
That
call them like,
exploit therapists, yeah.
exactly. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I was just thinking, like, he has such a large platform to be, providing and referring because my 9 times out of 10, I was looking at the rates on Facebook for Talkspace and other places. It was really low. When
Hmm.
you go to places like that, even if it might be more affordable, you're probably getting a therapist that's like super burned out.
And what happens is that it's high turnover. It's where a lot of therapists go when they're desperate for money and they're just trying to like get some clients and start making money because they have bills to pay. And so they'll take that $20 for a session and run with it and try to build up a caseload or see enough people. I've seen people like in some groups and be like, yeah, I'm seeing 60 people a week. I was like, are you seeing 60 people a week? Are you freaking crazy? But it's very much, and then what the client feels is like, oh, the therapists are unreliable, they're not that good. Yeah, because they're stressed and underpaid and they can't even regulate themselves. How are they going to help you regulate yourself? And that's like one of those things that I recognize about myself. Like when I'm off, it's going to impact my therapy sessions. And so I'll be looking at my calendar. I'm like, who I'm seeing today? I'm like, okay, I don't have to be 100% on with them. They're good. They can process a lot of things themselves, and I'm just here to listen. But then it's other times I'm off, and it's like a client, and I was like, I do not need to be off today for this client. How do I ground myself? How do I regulate myself? How do I get myself back to where I need to be able to be helpful? And it's hard when you're underpaid, you're frustrated, you can't pay your own bills, and you're just like um, having all this high demand. I contract with this other company, and we have this issue of their schedules don't their calendars don't sync with like Google calendars or any of the EHRs or things like that. And so they just like clients are going in and they're booking appointments and the therapists are canceling because it's like they don't have it available anymore, but we're not going in over there every single day and marking off our availability
Mhm.
because you're not thinking about that as you're scheduling clients on your calendar, like, oh, let me go over here and mark this as unavailable. And
Mhm.
so I've had people who like were telling me that they've had so many cancellations, and I was like, I was going to cancel you too. And so I'm trying to make referrals to like people I know who can see them right now, who have the availability and space. But it's a lot of these big major companies are all about like capitalizing off of mental health, and they're not thinking about the therapist, and they don't understand therapy and the importance of the relationship with therapists.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because then, like, if someone has a bad experience, like, who's to say that they're going to come back
Mhm.
to therapy? That's why I'm always advocating. I'm like, it's not the therapy, it's the therapist. Maybe it's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
Um, find someone else. But it should really be illegal, especially with the counseling boards, that why do we go through all this schooling, all these ethical classes, all of these things, right?
Mhm.
Only for tech companies to come along and be like, you have to see 40 clients a week. Like that is, it almost feels like nobody's protecting the therapist.
Yeah, there's no respect for our profession. And even like when I think about like psychiatrists, where like their first appointment may be, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but then every subsequent like appointment after that, it's like 11, 15 minutes. And they get all this respect, and people in the insurance companies pay them, and people pay them well. But it's like we sit with these clients for an hour, and we utilize so much of our own energy being able to like support and guide them, and nobody appreciates what we're doing, although they'd be like, well, all you do is listen to people talk, or all you do is like, how does that make you feel? And it's like that's not what I do.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy because one of my peers had messaged me about a company. A recruiter reached out to her, and of course, I went to Facebook to just see the reviews. And therapist was saying that the first few clients they see, the company pays them out, and then they never pay them again. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's tough out there, and I see what you see is like therapists being burnt out. And so when people are like, I can't find a therapist, and it's like, yeah, because so many are burnt out and they've left the field to go do something else. Or they're
Exactly.
sitting here struggling, trying to figure out how do I make money, and your therapist is canceling because they're overbooked and they're overwhelmed and they're, you know, trying to juggle their own lives in between, and so it gives a bad like impression of therapy and therapists. But then at the same time, there's so many things that are going on around the whole mental health field that, you know, clients don't necessarily see, and people, therapists who are coming into this profession, don't see either. I think about how many associates I work with, and they were like, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. I didn't know, like, getting clients, being able to bill myself, even just being able to find a job was going to be this hard. And it's like school didn't prepare you for that.
It really doesn't. It doesn't prepare you for the business aspect of it. Like, I think there should even be a course for like when you're looking for a supervisor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, me personally, I had a good experience with supervisor, but I've heard people tell me horror stories. One person said that their supervisor wasn't approving their hours, and eventually, I guess they got arrested. So they had to make up their hours. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, you know what happened to me with my supervisor being under investigation and with me losing half of my hours.
That's awful. That
And
is
so it's always it's such a, and it's one of the things where I say also when it comes to like clients being, I'll use the word abused in therapy. And it's like so much of what we do is done behind closed doors, our supervision, our, you know, our working with clients, all of it's done behind closed doors. And most people don't know what to expect or what's supposed to be happening because it's not talked about enough.
yeah,
And so people are just put in these positions where they're being mistreated.
yeah. The clients and the therapist.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know me as a supervisor, I try to always be very upfront with like how I present, the how I run my show, how I do things, but even then with that, I think some people don't believe it, and
Hmm.
they were like, "No, I still need to do this." I was like, "If you CC me on one more thing, I'm gonna scream. I told you I don't care."
But I think that that's that more of that corporate mindset because I feel like when I was a financial analyst, like it was always CYA, cover
Mhm.
yourself. They're out to get you. Like, what if they retaliate? But becoming a therapist, it's like it's just a whole different ball game. We don't really have CYA. Of course, we have documentation, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah. And even when I think about like, covering your ass and things like that, you even have to do that with other therapists. And so I'm looking in some of those like groups and they're like, that's unethical. I was like, it's not unethical. I was like, y'all think everything is unethical just because you don't know how to do it, you don't understand it, it's different than how you practice, does not mean it's unethical. And so a lot of times I don't talk about anything that I do. I don't, I don't like, even like when I talk to a lot of my clients, we bring in a lot of my clients come with like religious trauma and things like that. They're not in like the church anymore or organized religion. They're leaning more towards like, spirituality, Buddhism, things like that. And when I talk about like, I don't tell people we talk about like astrology and alignment of stars and what transitions that we're going through and things like that. I don't tell other therapists stuff like that because they're like, you can't do that. And it's like, why not? Says who?
Exactly, because all your clients have different lived experience, and if they want to talk about rituals with the blood moon, then we are going to talk about it. Like, it's okay for we're all different individuals, and I've been seeing a lot of that on social media. Like, therapists shouldn't have social media. It gives me the ick when therapists have, social media, and I'm like, I think therapists having social media is a good thing because
So we can't be people?
exactly. Like you get to get a sense of their personality. Like it's almost kind of like a pre-consultation. Like, do I like your vibe? Do I not? Even if you don't want to go to therapy, at least you can get the benefit of the perspective or the coping skills. Like you can still get something without seeing them as a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I think one of the big things that people what we run into as therapists is like, what can we say? How much can we say? Are we going to be liable if we say X, Y, and Z? You know, if we want to talk about like our client or experience or in session, it's like, how do you do that with like without violating HIPAA and things like that? And it's like, you have to be careful. You have to like watch how you present. But then it's like, just because you have social media does not even mean that you have to be talking about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've seen some therapists that just do outfits of the day. And I was like, oh, that's a cute cardigan. I like that cardigan. Where'd she get that cardigan from? Kind of thing. And so I love when you can really see a person's, personality and be able to know if you're going to be a fit. And it makes me think about the whole, how, certain theories be like, oh, blank slate. And it's like, nobody wants to talk to a blank slate. And the reason why I have maintained my clients for so long, I have clients I've been seeing for like 5 years, and people are like, "How do you do that?" I was like, "We have a relationship." And so even when things are quiet and nothing really is going on in their life, they still are showing up to therapy because we have a relationship, and they know that this is their space to be able to have an hour to themselves that they may not ever get in their life. And it's like, um, I'll have like interns, and I was like, well, how much can we share? And I was like, I share a lot with my clients about myself. Do they know my whole life story? Absolutely not. I have a whole like basically playlist of things that I share, and then there's a whole nother side that nobody ever gets, and they never will because it's my private life. But even like with my birthday, so many of my clients knew about my birthday. They were asking me about my trip and things like that. I have ones that was making recommendations of what restaurants I should go to, and what it does, it builds a connection,
Mm-hmm.
and so they start to look forward to their therapy sessions versus just feeling like they having some person stare at them and judge them for an hour.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing is the therapeutic relationship. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's like you either have that deep connection with your therapist or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll have clients like we'll just be talking, and every once in a while they're like, "Can I ask you a personal question? Like, do you have kids?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like, yes, I have kids. I have 3 kids. Like, you know what I mean? Now, am I going to give them the birth date and the socials? No.
Yeah.
But it's like we're mostly talking about them, but there are going to be times where people are going to want to know, like, did you have any wins? And I usually with my wins that I share, it's in regards to fitness or self care. I
Mhm.
feel like that is pretty much the goals that they're working on. And personal things, yes, I keep it out of session, but we're humans. Like the connection goes both ways.
It's like I was talking to somebody, and they were one of my interns, and they were asking me, they was like, how do you respond when a client asks you, like, how are you doing? I was like, I tell them how I'm doing. And they were asking, like, well, do you feel like the question is like a genuine question or something that they just are asking because that's how we're taught to communicate? And I was like, I can tell the difference. And so there's a way that a person asks a question where you see that it's just like, oh, they just want to find so they can go on and talk about their conversation. But some are really like, no, how are you? And they want to know. And I'm like, I'm tired. I was like, I've been running around, ripping and running. I did 7 miles this morning, and I will let them know a little bit about like what's going on. But I'm here, I'm present. What you got going on?
Yeah. I think sometimes there's a hesitancy not to say that you're not okay or that you're tired because that means you might show up less as a therapist, but you can, two things can still be true. I can still be tired and I can still be present and still be able to provide you with helpful coping skills or
Yeah.
tools.
And I think that's a matter of like modeling behavior also. And it's like how best to teach than to model. And so if I can say I had a bad week or I'm exhausted, but still be able to show them how to show up or even give them some of the tools that I have used to be able to ground myself. Not like, yeah, I had to go and lay in my hammock, in the sun for a little while. Or one of my favorite things I do when I'm going for a walk. So I don't just say I've gone for a walk. I'll just say, yeah, I went out charging my melanin. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, I had to go charge my melanin and I feel better now. And so they're able to see like the ways that I have handled things. And I also think about it like, I see a lot of people with like anxiety disorders. because I know anxiety disorders very well. And so I have been able to kind of share my own experiences, my own stories, what has happened, how it has progressed. I mean, how, I guess not progressed, but has resolved itself and what it looks like now versus what it looked like when I was like 15 years old. And so by being able to share those things, or even when I tell them, like, I'm feeling a little anxious today. Or I had a client, they were trying to describe to me how they were feeling, like what their nervous system was, and I was able to give them the exact words. They were like, oh, yeah, that's like, I know that feeling. And it's like, it's not like a palpitation, it's like a pressure, it's a different kind of thing. And so they were able to like, oh yeah, like that's what I'm going through. Or it's like, oh, you have like this tingling sensation or this tightness in your hips. And it's like being able to really help them identify like the different ways that a body can feel. That's not necessarily what the symptom checklist is. And it's like unless you have like really experienced it or gone through it, you don't know, like you don't have that clarity of how it looks and how it shows up. And so that's why I always ask clients, how is this showing up for you? Because I want to hear how you experience it, but then also being able to assist you with giving you additional words to like better understand what's going on with your body.
I love that. Yeah. Going back to connecting with the body, I feel like it's something so simple, but people forget to like check in on themselves or check in on their bodies, or did you drink enough water, or did you get enough sleep? And it's like, oh, I'm stressed, but I didn't get any sleep and I haven't drank any water and I didn't eat yesterday. And it's like, well, that's probably why you feel like this right now.
And so I one thing that I tell people, because we don't just normally check in with our bodies, and I always say like set a timer throughout the day to kind of just go off a soft timer, not one of those crazy alarms, but something soft to kind of remind yourself to kind of check in with yourself. Are you holding your shoulders tight? Are you holding your breath? With anxiety, I tend to hold my breath a lot and I have to catch myself. It's like breathe. And it's like I don't even realize I'm doing it. Then all of a sudden I'm like, and I was like, oh, you were holding your breath. And so being able to kind of really check in, and that's how I can tell like the difference between like pressure versus like a palpitation is because I'm paying attention to what I feel, or it's like a closing in of the chest or a tightness. And I can, when you can identify what it is, then you can identify what you need. And it's like, oh, if it's a closing in, a tightness, that means I need to open up. And I was like, what can I do to open up to be able to kind of relieve that? And so it's so important to kind of check in with yourself and pay attention to what your body normally does, so you can be able to see those shifts into what it's doing now, or how you feel when you're anxious or when you're thinking about certain things. Because a lot of times I always tell people, your body will tell you before your mind does. But if you're not paying attention, you won't see it.
For sure. Because a lot of times when I ask people, like, how do you even know, like, when you're stressed or you're anxious? And usually with the stress, they're like, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, kind of recall, like, what happens when you know? And I think that that's like 30% of the work is being able to identify when you are stressed, when you are anxious. Because if from 1 to 10, you're already at a 10 of anxiety, that's when you're going to start having panic attacks and you're going to shut down and you can't
Mhm.
function. So really being aware is such a helpful tool.
Yeah. That's why whenever I tell people about like when I was first like diagnosed with anxiety, it was not that I was having like palpitations or anything like that. I was having severe headaches. I thought I had a brain tumor. And so I went to the my pediatrician, to the I went to the neurologist, I had MRIs, I had CAT scans, I went through all these things, blood work, to be able to see if something was wrong with my brain. And it wasn't until the neurologist was like, you have anxiety, you're fine. And that's how I got my diagnosis. And so it wasn't those typical symptoms. I was just having headaches. And now, like, I have like a consistent kind of like numbness in my head, like at all times. And so I tell people, it's like, I live with a headache, but I think it's just like my body has just gotten used to being at that level of anxiety. And so it's not bad, but it's like there's an awareness that I'm a little bit on edge at all times.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like, I notice a lot of time in sessions, that's like my opportunity to check in with the client to see, like, you know, when's the last time you've been to your PCP, or when's the last time you've been to the dentist? Like, what are the ways that you're showing up for yourself? Like, it's not just aesthetic things. Like, part of taking care of yourself is going to get those preventative checkups. And I find when clients actually do those things, they feel so much more better instead of like, oh my gosh, I think something's wrong with me. I'm not going to think about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's when we look at like something like cognitive behavioral therapy, where we're looking for evidence. And I was like, go get your evidence that things are okay. And so when you go to the doctor and you go through these tests and you know, the workups and, you know, all these exams, you get your evidence that everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I was worried that, you know, I had heart problems and, you know, the cardiologist says everything is fine. And I was like, okay. I did the same thing. I thought I had heart problems. And I was like, let me go to the cardiologist. And I hold on to that, even though that was years ago. I still hold on to like, no, I have evidence that I'm fine. I went through the stress test. I wore a heart rate monitor. If something was wrong, they already would have caught it, because both of my parents had, you know, the heart issues earlier in life. They would have saw something by now and caught it. And they've been on top of things. They're very preventative in terms of my care, just because both of my parents, my mom died of heart failure, my dad has a pacemaker, you know, I'm a high risk for heart problems. And so they're on top of it. And I know that they're on top of it because of the way that they treat even like minor things. It's like, we don't like that. Let's go check on it. And they'll be like, with a regular client, with a regular patient, they wouldn't worry about it. But with me, because of my history, they're like, we're going to look a little bit more into that. But what that does, it gives me the evidence that my medical team is on top of things, that they're going to catch things. So if something was wrong, somebody would have known it by now.
Yeah. And the
And
best
so,
thing you can do is get it checked out early, and like you're doing.
mhm. It's kind of like what I talk to people about, like in, you know, Houston, we have a huge medical um, center. We have top cancer treatment. And so when I talk to clients who are worried about like cancer, I was like, you're in the best place to have cancer. You know, I was like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else with cancer. And they're like, it's true. And even I think about all my clients who have, you know, had cancer in Houston, everything has been fine because they have top rate, you know, providers. And so it's just like minimizes like the stresses when you start looking at like what is the evidence around you. And it's like, if I have this, I'm gonna go in to the doctor, I'm gonna get checked, and then guess what? There's so many options of medical treatment. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I love that reframe. I never thought about it like that. Houston's like one of the best places to get cancer treatment.
Mhm. Yeah, good place to get shot and everything. You have great trauma centers.
There you go.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's always interesting just looking at it and kind of seeing how people view therapy, how therapists are dealing with therapy, and all of that. I think about my daughter. She was asking me the other day. She's like, "You have a therapist?" And I was like, no. I was like, not right now. I was like, I'm managing things. She's like, how are you managing things? I was like, because I'm a therapist and like I know how to process things in a different way. And when I get stuck, will I reach out to a therapist? Yeah. But like right now, I have a pretty good grasp on things. And I sit and I process things when something is coming up for me. I know how to explore it. I know how to find my evidence. I know how to reframe those things. Um, but I was like, there is something that I'm finding I'm getting a little bit stuck on that I'm probably going to reach out to a therapist about. But like for the most part, everything is fine. I know how to make the shifts that I need to be able to make. And I also always tell people what's funny is that a lot of times the things that you need will show up in your therapy sessions while working with clients. And
Mm.
so you'll be talking to them and you'll say something and it's like, wait a minute, I needed that one. That was for me. And so I was like, I get a lot just from the work that I do.
I don't have nothing.
So cut those in half.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll edit the first episode and then the other one, and I'll probably put those out Tuesday, and then the other ones will be like filler.
Mhm. Okay.
Perfect, perfect. I was gonna say, have you been looking at the thumbnails? Any ideas? I've ran it through chat, and he said that the thumbnails are really good. So.
Yeah. I haven't even looked. I think a lot of times I just even like I haven't posted anything on my own YouTube. I'm about to. Um, but a lot of times I just put stuff out there and just let it be. And I also know that it's part of how I regulate my own anxiety about stuff. Because if I start being too picky or looking at things, it's just like put it out there. Whatever it does, it will do. Whoever it was meant for, it will get to them. Those types of things.
I love that because that's the intention, right? For it to get to who it's supposed to get to.
Yeah.
What do you want
It's
to know?
it's kind of like I was talking to one of my associates, and they were talking about a woman in dating, and she was talking about that maybe she's attracting these things, and I was like, she's definitely attracting, and they were like, why don't so much believe in that? I was like, you don't believe in the laws of attraction? I was like, she's definitely putting out the energy that's attracting those types of people, and she needs to change that.
Yeah, I always tell my clients because they'll say like, I'm working on manifesting and I'm focusing on what I want and like why did I attract this person or this situation? And I was like, well, you probably still have some old scripts running in the background.
Hmm. Yeah. And I recognize that. That's why I tell people like the importance of being able to test what we've been working on. And it's like, I need you to go out there and test and see if this is working. So if we need to make any edits, we can make some edits.
I like